Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Biophilic Alternative, and my name is Magiabella. I am your Sunday host, and today I'm going to continue the conversation on Spellwork for Spin Pixie and to keep this information going. So I've been thinking about it, and I've been mulling it over for days. And actually, ever since her first video came out, I have been doing various, as she would call it, meditations. I would just say that my thought process has been activated. So the first aspect that I wanted to kind of ramble about was the ritualization of our spells. And there's also been a lot of talk on YouTube as of late about, do you need tools, why you do tools, what, the need versus the want, whether you buy tools or it's better to make tools, or first thing is, I'm going to say that the reason there is no right or wrong, and why you hear a lot of almost vagueness about things, or what I consider everybody seems to have, is everything is giving you contradictory advice. Now, the YouTube witches are actually giving you at least the ones I'm seeing, the ones I'm watching, have been giving very accurate advice. However, a new person is always coming in and asking a question. Well, I can't do this because I don't have all these tools, and it's so expensive to buy all this stuff. Okay, well, how this relates to what I'm going to talk about is the ritualization. You do not need all of the tools. However, that being said, what is a definition of a tool? And your first tool is your mind, and how you activate your mind was in my first video on Spellwork, and it is intention. And everything that we're doing in our ritual of a spell is about putting us where we need to be. It's putting us where we need to be in our intention and our focus. But it's also putting us where we need to be in our energy raising. It's putting us where we need to be to make a strong, effective spell. Spin asked a question in her first video, why that she would have a whole lot of intention and just a very simple candle and whatever, and she got big results with it. Whereas she had the full out process with an altar full of all kinds of herbs and candles and this and that, and did not have success with it, or maybe what she thought wasn't success. And so I wanted to talk about the ritual. I'm not going to say that you have to do this or you have to do that in your ritual. You don't, because it's your ritual, and that's the key. It is the reason that you hear so many witches tell you, if they're seasoned witches, that it doesn't matter if you do how you cast your circle. It doesn't. I think there's a way, but in my mind I have to do it my way. Lady Gravedancer, she does it her way. And I don't know what her way is, but I know beyond a shadow of a doubt her way is correct. It is correct for her. Everything she does is correct for her. And everything I do is correct for me. And I'm going to say the same thing for October or Jan or Eva or they said it's rock and roll, Damiana. There are no wrong ways because it's about your mind, your soul, your feeling, your emotion. So your created ritual is for a pathway to get you into that spot. It's the sweet spot, and you're looking for that sweet spot. And your ritual puts you there. First time witch, first time spell. That ritual is not going to be there. You're starting to create your ritual. You're starting to build your thought forms. You're starting to make your mind associations. You're starting to build your pathways. And those pathways are going to be vital to you. But are they vital to you on your first spell? Yes and no. They are not vital because they are going to be really strong when you first start. They're not going to be really strong. But what you're doing is you are implanting in your subconscious these suggestions that you are going to need. And the more you do spell work, and that's why the simple spells in the beginning are so important to a new witch. It is very important that you do these because this is your practice for later. You're creating your rituals, you're creating your habits, you're creating your thought forms, you're creating your energy pathways, you're creating the connections that you need in your mind and your soul, and as above as below kind of thing, to where you are going to be building your power. The ritual that you start to create, the habits that you start to form in your beginning time, you will layer and continue to grow, and you will change and influence because you're going to start to understand the triggers that set in motion in you and in your spell work and in your connection to deity. And maybe not so much deity. Maybe it's just an energy pathway that you're going to be working. And that lends strength to your spell. Why does that lend strength to your spell? Because you're starting to link yourself into your spell work. And you have to, and it's not a particular spell, but every spell you do, you need to link yourself into it. So by your thought, you're linking yourself. By your intention, by your ability to focus, you're linking yourself. But the other layers of what you're doing is also linking you. Conversation was, how do you find your matron or patron deity? How do you have to have a matron or patron deity? And what is it to And what energy are we working with in a spell? You can find a matron or patron deity anywhere. It can just be something that grabs your attention. Your matron or patron that you pick today does not have to be something that you carry on with years from now. That may change. My belief is most of the time they pick you. But it's not necessary. You can pick them. Why are we doing that? Well, because the more you learn and work with a patron or a matron deity, your channels to that energy flow that they represent, because believe to me, and this is my opinion, and everyone can have 1,000 different opinions, 1,000 different ways to do ritual. There's no right or wrong, but again, because it is in the mind that it needs to activate. So it has to feel right to you, and it has to be comfortable to you and how your mind associates. You can call it the Lord and the Lady. You can call it God and Goddess. You can call it divine feminine, divine masculine. You can just use the source of all, or also called the unity candle. You can bypass in spell work using a particular god or goddess, or you can pick a particular god and goddess that represents the energy flow for that spell. If you're going to work, say, I was going to say a love spell, but boy, does that get you into all kinds of gray areas. Let's say you're going to perform a prosperity spell. Now, there's lots of ways that you can do that. But what energy pathway are you going to pick to flow that spell out into the universe? Well, if you're a Christo-pagan, you could use St. Jude. You could petition him for help. You can also use St. Joseph and a few, there's thousands of saints, and you know, you could do that. You could use Jesus. But since Jesus wasn't so much into materialism, I don't think Jesus would be a great fit for the prosperity angle of it. Unless you were just doing it in a generalized way. You have to focus what you're doing according to the energy that feels right for the spell. And although Jesus does not feel right for me to work with, a Christo-pagan might feel very, very at ease with that and use that energy tide of the Christ consciousness to take it and flow it and make it rise. One of my matron deities is Hecate. Now, you can use your matron or your patron for any and all workings, because you have a strong, over the years, you have learned to work that energy so well that it's very, very strong how you can call it into your circle, how you can call it to wherever you are, and how you can use it and flow the information out into the universe. But Hecate would not be the one that I would probably use for prosperity. I would use another deity that was more in tune with wealth. If I was looking for abundance, I might use Gaia. I would pick a deity that would be associated more with that, because you're picking the energy tide and flow that you're going to use for the spell. And certain deities like Kali would not be real functional for my abundance spell. Could you do it? Yes, you can do it. But it's going to be a little more difficult, because the energy that you're calling in is not that type of energy. Picking the proper energy flow and energy tide. Now, okay, you don't have to pick a deity at all. You can pick just a basic energy tide. You can pick the north, which is about, you can pick earth, the north. You can pick green. You can pick different aspects. You can pick Jupiter for expansion. You can pick Saturn if your abundance is tied to a job or a creative endeavor that you're going to throw in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to. That would be a Saturn energy. Jupiter is an expansion energy. Maybe you would put the two of those together so that your hard work is expanded by the energy of Jupiter to bring it in. So maybe because I need to work with Jupiter and Saturn in that spell, I'm going to throw in herbs or stones or something that triggers my thought process on what I know about the energy of Jupiter, what I know about the energy of Saturn, what I now say I do have my deity in there. I'm going to throw in things that activate and do things for my deity. Number one thing that we do when we really, after we've set the circle and we start the more ritualized setting at the altar, is we light candles. Well, at least I do, because it's important to me. Well, Sylvia Brown says that every time that you light a candle, when you are trying to connect to spirit, and this means any spirit, any energy tide, whether it be ancestor, which is another way you can go in a spell work, is calling in ancestors. But when you light that candle, it helps spirit beam in on you. The candle flame is a way to bring energy into the circle. It also uses the second if air is first thought, then the lighting of the flame is the fire, the setting and starting of will, intention, desire, all of that goes in with the fire energies. So when you light that candle, you're offering it as a candle and a representation of your goddess. It helps your mind focus on that the goddess has been called in, or the divine feminine has been called in. And when you light the God candle, same thing. You are in your mind triggering an effect of that the mind knows that you have called in the God, the male energy, the divine masculine. When you light the source candle, it's the same thing. When you light your working candle, same thing. You are making triggers in your mind, but you're also focusing the energy that you're calling down where you want them. You're putting them in focus, and it's right there on whatever table that you're working with, your altar, your space. Same thing as when we light the bonfires outside when we're in fire rituals. It's the same thing. It's a focused intention of where we're putting in the energy and where we're focusing the energy. It's sort of like pulling out the magnifying glass and entombing an area, and that's where it's another way of focusing spirit and power into your circle. I'm not going to get into the candle magic itself, because that is, you could do video after video on the different ways to perform candle magic. Just about the triggers of lighting the God and Goddess candle and why we do it. This is why I do it, and why I will always, it's part of my ritual. And because it's part of my ritual, I know that it's activating layers in me. And these triggers have been built over time. These energy influences have been built over time. I can now work with just about any deity very quickly. I can also work with other energy tides just as well, and not necessarily ride a tide of deity energy into my spell work, because I know all kinds of different energy pathways now. It takes time to learn all these things. These are complicated concepts, and your mind has to become comfortable with the concept is one layer of it, but also you have to get used to finding your ways of connection. You have to build this psychic link. You have to link yourself to the spell. You have to link your goal to the spell. And you have to link your energy source to the spell. You have to do these links, these connections, these secret chords in how you're bringing in. This is why I do think that people need to work regularly with their chosen deities or energy tides, because this is how you build your connection with them, and every time you do it, it becomes a little stronger. And your system of doing it may slightly morph, because now you can do sort of like on your computer when you want to call in a certain program, you can shortcut it on your main face of your computer, and you just click that shortcut and then boom, you're there. You're building shortcuts in your mind. You're building these pathways that it's almost like a self-hypnotism as well. As you do these rituals and you get used to creating these rituals on your own, it builds stronger and stronger pathways, and that gives you stronger and stronger results in your work. It gives you more precise results to your spell workings. Practice, 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 like with anything, builds the skill set. And when you build the skill set, it doesn't take as much time to create what you're needing to do to get there. I still perform full-out ritualized spells, but if I need something quick, I can laser beam focus and just do it right there in my head. I don't need anything. I don't need a single thing. I might use a single stone to focus in on if I need something quick. I may have a certain stone or a divination tool that I can grab, touch, and also be there. It doesn't matter what it is, because it's going to be a connection that you have to something. So it could be a statue. It could be you sitting in nature and just feeling the rhythm of the earth coming through you. It can be anything that can immediately center and ground you into where you need to go to start performing an immediate spell work. And I am going to end the video here because it's already getting a little long, and I just want y'all to recognize that the energy that you choose for your spell is extremely important, and that everything that you do is about either bringing in your focus and intention, or building your energy, or building your connection to energy. So that is one of the next layers that I just thought was very important to talk about, and it's building those pathways to the universal energy tides, whatever you might call it, because there's not a right or a wrong name. You can call it a goddess energy, you can call it a universal power tide, you can call it, it doesn't matter. You know what you're trying to connect with, and that energy is what you're trying to bring in and what you're trying to flow the spell out to, so that they can bring it back to you. And you need to create these different links. And so I would strongly advise you kind of contemplating that also for yourself, is what your links are to this spell, and what your links are to the goal, and what your links are to the power sources that you have chosen to use to work this spell, because those links are going to be an extremely important aspect of the spell. If the link isn't there, or the link is not made properly, that's how you sometimes get a result from your spell, but not the result that you really wanted. Now, is that a failure of a spell? No, it's not a failure of a spell. Even a failed spell teaches you. It teaches you that something needed to be tweaked to get the right result. And so there's no, I have no fear working spells. I haven't ever had my spells go so awry that it would have led me to some catastrophe that I needed to fear. I guess that may be that I had sort of that adventurous nature in me to begin with, and I also had some cautious nature into me, that I didn't delve into certain spell work that, if it did go wrong, could be disastrous. So my intentions were generally extremely pure when I was petitioning the universe to bring in something. So there were no fear on my part on how I was doing it. So I encourage you to play. I encourage you to pick a deity, any deity, or pick an energy, pick a planetary energy, pick anything, and just start learning to work with it, because the longer you work with it, the bigger the connection is, and then the more powerful your result will be with the workings of that energy. So everybody have a wonderfully blessed day, and I will see you next Sunday. Blessings.